Alright, welcome to the next day. You can see I removed the flooring on the ski locker. I'm going to go ahead and clean up around the edges just a little bit more, get some de-waxer on it, and start the tabbing process. Hope you're as excited as I am, because once I get this tabbed in on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and put that flooring back on. And I'm going to go ahead and start tabbing around the edges to completely secure the flooring in place. So we're moving right along. Once this flooring gets installed up here, we're really going to be cooking with gas, so to speak. I'll also finish here in just a little bit. I'm also going to finish sanding this piece down as well, because we want to make sure we get all that gel coat off. Otherwise we're going to have some bonding issues. So that's going to be the plan. I'll go ahead and get started, and we'll see you here in just a sec. Alright, so I got the peanut butter all mixed up. Made sure I got into the little nook and crannies, just so we don't have any weird air pockets. Left side is good. Forward bulkhead. I had some thick spots kind of towards the bottom that I had to fill in, but nothing crazy. And then coming along the right side, you can kind of see particles of, or little pieces of the 1/2-inch chop strand. That's normal. One of the things that I noticed about epoxy, which I thought was kind of interesting, is if you expose it to sunlight, it will actually kick off a lot faster than you would expect it to. The reason I mention it is the sun is kind of coming in a little bit on the left side. You can actually, if you caught it right there, it kind of smoked a little bit. Really, really interesting. Sunlight and epoxy, highly reactive. So if you're mixing in a direct sunlight scenario, don't be surprised if it kicks off super fast. As I mentioned just a second ago, you could kind of see little plumes of smoke coming up. I don't know if you can catch it. I don't know if hopefully the camera is catching it. It's really kind of interesting. But yeah, it does get really hot. Just like when you mix your 2-part foam to put underneath the stringers or under the flooring. Same thing, gets pretty hot. So that's that. What we're going to do is we're going to let this dry, and I'll go ahead and hit pause, and once it's good and dry, we'll go ahead and do a little bit of light sanding and tab this with some Kevlar. So it'll look like instant for you, but it'll be a few hours for me. So we'll get that tabbing here in just a minute. Alright, take a look at this Kevlar. Came out nice. All the seams where I made cuts, I doubled up on all the joints just to make sure we didn't have any problems in the future, so just took some extra precaution there. Take a look on the sides. Came out pretty good. Check out the other side as well. I have nothing but good things to say about this Kevlar, that's all I can say. And we also cover the front portions as well. It's in there pretty solid. Alright, so now that we got the Kevlar wrapped along the edges, what I plan on doing is finishing up a little bit of the grinding here, because if we were to put the flooring in next, there's a good chance the grinding wheel, do it this way, will actually run into the floor that goes here. So I'm going to go ahead and knock off this little piece of metal, cut that rivet out, finish cutting this one out, finish grinding, and then we'll go ahead and install this floor. Alright, so as I prepare to install the flooring permanently, I did do some little tricks I want to show you. In your application, you may not be able to do the little trick that I got here, but it's just a idea that you may consider doing. If you notice, I got a little string that runs the length of that stringer. It doesn't have a really good angle where I could consistently find it when I have the flooring in. So I attached it to the upper part of the boat that I know is going to be consistent. And then I used a hot glue gun to run another line across that stringer. So as I'm looking down straight at it, I'll have the ability to use some stainless steel screws to permanently attach the stringers to the flooring. You see that little string I got right there? Same thing. I got just enough room to hit one stainless steel screw right there in that corner. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Likely I'm going to probably get one on that side, one on this side, and run probably a barrage of maybe 2 or 3 on that forward bulkhead, just to give it a little bit more grab against those stringers and marine grade plywood. So now that I got all the lines marked, let me show you the stainless steel screws that I plan on using. All right, here you go. So these are 100% stainless steel. I got these from a store called Home Depot. They are true blue stainless steel screws. The reason I like these are they do not rust at all. These specific screws have been sitting in water. I did some testing with them ahead of time, and these were actually sitting in water for almost like 2-3 weeks straight, and you can see they don't even kind of rust. And the side effect of it is you got to be really careful when you're screwing these in to the stringers, because they do have a tendency to break. So as you're using these, just make sure you screw them in super slow. I probably have out of 10, just right out of the box, I probably have at least one of these heads pop off out of roughly 10. So be careful as you're screwing your flooring down into your marine grade plywood. Just something to consider. But if you're curious about the actual brand of these, let me know and I'll provide that link for you. Okay, so now that I got everything secured and out of the way, ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and slide the piece of flooring in place, and we will go ahead and get started with screwing this thing on. Looking good. So what we're going to do now that we've lined up everything on the left and right, you can see where the strings come into play. These little bitty angles that you probably wouldn't be able to see otherwise. We've kind of helped ourselves out a little bit. You just got to make sure as you're drilling in that you keep the drill up and down perfectly so you can catch that stringer under there. So that's it. What we're going to do now is we'll go ahead and start applying the probably I'm going to say like 4 screws in there. And we'll move on to glassing after that. And as you can see here, the little string lines that I made worked out perfect. I went underneath and double checked to make sure I made perfect contact with everything, and sure enough, I definitely did. Next thing you need to do if you use glue like I did is you need to remove all the residual glue, because your epoxy or polyester resin will not stick to this glue. So just a quick heads up. Okay, so one thing we shouldn't forget about before we move any further is we got to get the very front done. And you see how I wrote top, obviously, and this is the forward piece that we need to get done. So it's kind of like my meticulous way of doing things. Before we go to the very back, I want to make sure we get all the plywood cut for the front, and I'll show you how we attach it. We'll use a little block of 3/4 to attach the front and back nose there. So anyway, let's go ahead and take this template out now that it's dry, and put it on the actual 1/2-inch plywood, and we'll cut it out. Alright, so you can see here I have a leftover piece, and I'm trying to utilize whatever I can so we cut down on wasting too much here. Obviously, like, that part will be cut off, but like you see, I utilize the very tip up here, and that's pretty much it. I'll go ahead and cut this out. Make sure I designate which one is left and right, so when I put this in the boat it fits in perfect. Okay, so you can see here I took a 3/4 inch piece of marine grade plywood and just attached it with 2 stainless steel screws. I'll go ahead and install this in the boat and then fasten probably like 2 in the same direction, doesn't really matter. And the one thing to make sure is I did allow 1.5 inches, so as I butt this surface up, I'll know I have 1.5 inches of meat to grab onto. Okay, you can see there I got the 2, and there are the other 2. So at this point we are good to go on the very front. So that's looking good in terms of our progress so far. Okay, now that we got the front completed, your next thought would be, are we going to peanut butter along the edges and kind of secure it? Yes, we are, but what we're not going to do now is we're not going to go ahead and start that process until we get one of the main pieces of the flooring installed. The reason why this is important is the front has some odd shapes to it, and it's nearly impossible to make sure it's level from the left side all the way to the right side, just because you've got 2 stringers underneath, so we can't stick a level there. We do know the center is level, but that doesn't mean as it feathers out to the left and right that those are level. So what we're going to do is we're going to step back a little bit, and we're going to go to the next piece of the puzzle that must be thought about in order to install the decking at the right height, which is, here's your clue, it's right in front of me. This is where the fuel cell is. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that next. What we're going to do is we're going to get the fuel cell installed, and then we're going to find out what the minimum height is of the fuel cell as it sits in here, and then from there we'll go ahead and build the stringers, because we may, it's possible, may have to lift the floor up a little bit higher, or maybe have like a little step up or something along those lines. You never know. Or there, you know, as the floor is over here on the left and right, we may have, it may not be perfectly level across. But once we get this first sheet of flooring put across, you'll be able to kind of take out any kind of variances that may be on that side versus the right side. Plus, we're also going to figure in the variable of where the fuel tank is. So let's go ahead and call that the good on this episode. As always, I hope you like the episodes that's going along here. Pretty different, as you've seen here. We're using a lot of Kevlar, almost no fiberglass other than chop strand. Did that on purpose to kind of give you all a little idea of what it looks like when we use alternatives to 1708 fiberglass and things like that. So hit that like button if you thought it was helpful. If you got any comments, questions, leave it in the comments field. I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe. Click on that little picture of me riding in the boat. That's me. Hit that button and follow me on the next episode. Have a good one. Catch you next time.